It is mid-morning on October 28, 1965, 630 feet above the Mississippi River. Two ironwork crews stand on opposite legs of an unfinished arch, close enough now to nearly touch across an 8.5-foot gap. The final section, a 10-ton stainless steel triangle, needs every inch of that gap to fit. Overnight cold has given way to morning sun, and the south leg has already swollen enough to shrink the opening by 5 inches. 5 inches, 630 feet up. Not a design flaw, not bad luck, just steel, doing exactly what steel does in the heat, at the worst possible moment. The piece meant to complete the arch is now too big for the gap it was built for. Somehow, in the next few hours, it still has to go in. The question is how. St. Louis had wanted a monument to westward expansion since 1935, when city leaders pushed to commemorate the Louisiana Purchase and the fur traders, wagon trains and steamboats that had once launched from this riverbank. In 1947, a national design competition drew 172 entries. The winner, Finnish-born architect Eero Saarinen, proposed something no one had built before, a stainless steel arch 630 feet tall and 630 feet wide, rising from the ground in a single unbroken curve. Saarinen never saw it built. He died of a brain tumour in 1961, roughly a year and a half before ground was even broken. The question he left behind, could anyone actually build it? The job of turning Saarinen's design into steel fell to Pittsburgh Des Moines Steel Company, the fabricator and erector working beneath general contractor McDonald Construction. Their crew, ironworkers, welders and riggers under project manager Ken Kolkmeyer, rarely numbered more than 100 people at any one time. None of them had built anything like this, because nothing like this had ever gone up. They worked without safety harnesses, standard practice on high steel in 1963, climbing legs with no scaffolding and no room for error. Kolkmeyer later admitted that plenty of outsiders doubted the two legs would ever meet at the top. His own crew never did. The finished arch was built from 142 prefabricated sections, 71 for each leg, double-walled steel triangles, engineered at Pittsburgh Des Moines Steel Company plants in Warren and Neville Island, Pennsylvania, then shipped by rail to St. Louis. The outer skin was 1/4-inch stainless steel, the inner wall 3/8-inch carbon steel. Between them, for the first 300 feet, crews pumped in reinforced concrete, turning each triangle into a load-bearing column rather than a hollow shell. Standard cranes lifted the first sections to 72 feet. After that, height demanded something new, specially designed creeper derricks, 80-ton climbing cranes that rode up rails bolted to the arch itself, hauling their own crane higher with every section they placed. The arch was carrying its own construction equipment. Here is what made the project genuinely frightening. The two legs were built independently, from opposite ends of the site, with no way to check alignment against each other in real time. Engineers Fred Severud and Hans-Carl Bandel had calculated the entire curve, a weighted catenary, a modified version of the shape a hanging chain makes when inverted, with a base tolerance of about 1/64 of an inch. If either leg drifted off that calculated angle by even a small amount, the arch would not fail dramatically. It would simply miss. Two towers of stainless steel, aimed at a single point in open air 630 feet up, expected to land within inches of each other. There was no partial credit for being close. By early 1965, both legs neared 530 feet, leaning inward under their own enormous weight, unsupported except by the strength of the curve itself. Crews lowered a steel stabilizing truss between them, bolted across both legs to stop the swaying while the remaining sections went up. Then the legs kept climbing, each one still standing on nothing but its own foundation, and a matching leg 630 feet away it had never touched. As the legs neared the top, the triangular sections shrank from 54 feet along each side at ground level to just 17 feet at the peak. Every reduction meant recalculating the load path through steel that thinned as it climbed. Bandel's design treated the arch's own skin as the structure. No internal skeleton, no separate frame, just steel walls carrying their own weight and the wind load of the entire monument. Engineers called it orthotropic construction, and almost no one had used it at this scale before. Before construction began, an insurance estimate predicted the project would cost 13 workers their lives. Extreme height, exposed steel, no harnesses, no nets. The odds seemed to justify the number. The crew went 500 working days without a single lost-time accident. When the arch was finished, the death toll priced into the job stood at 0. Not because the danger wasn't real, because it was managed day after day by people who never once treated the height as routine. Which brings the story back to that October morning. With the gap shrinking before the final piece could even be lifted, the crew turned to 2 tools, fire hoses and a hydraulic jack, built to spread the legs apart. Firefighters sprayed the swollen south leg with cold water, fighting the thermal expansion, while riggers used the jack to force the 2 legs the full 8.5 feet apart. 6 inches of clearance, no more. Crews began raising the final section at 9:28 that morning, a half hour ahead of schedule because of worries about the sun. The lift took 13 minutes. By 11, the last piece had dropped home, and the gateway arch, for the first time in its 630-foot life, became a single, closed structure. Crowds along the riverfront and a city watching on live television held their breath until it did. The arch was never meant as decoration. It stood for a specific claim, that St. Louis was, and always had been, the gateway through which the country moved west. A monument shaped like a doorway, wide enough and tall enough that visitors could walk directly beneath it, onto the same riverbank where fur traders and wagon trains once launched their own journeys into the unknown. Not a statue of a person, a shape you could walk through, on your way to somewhere else. The Gateway Arch opened to the public in 1967, its interior fitted with a barrel-shaped tram system built to move through a curve no ordinary elevator could follow. It has stood since without structural incident, engineered to sway as much as 18 inches, in winds up to 150 miles an hour, still holding the exact line 2 independent crews once aimed at from opposite ends of a riverbank. The gap that would not close was never really about heat or steel. It was about a design so exact that a few inches, closing over 630 feet, could be the difference between success and failure, and a crew willing to bet 2.5 years of work on getting that margin right. Today, visitors walk under the arch without a second thought about how it was built. But for 2.5 years, whether the 2 legs would ever meet at all was never a certainty. These systems shape the world quietly. If you'd like to see more of them preserved, consider subscribing, and tell us, which forgotten craft should we document next?